Real strength is staying calm when everything tries to make you angry. Think about that for a second. How often do you let someone's words, a small mistake, or a stressful moment ruin your whole day? You tell yourself you'll stay calm next time, but then something happens, and you react again. That's because calmness isn't built in the heat of the moment, it's built before it. This isn't about pretending you're fine or hiding your emotions. It's about understanding how your mind works so deeply that anger loses its control over you. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to handle people, pressure, and problems without letting them shake you. You'll discover how calm people think, how they protect their peace, and how they respond when life gets unfair. If you've ever wanted to feel unshakable, this is where it begins, learning how to stay calm no matter what and never get angry again. Chapter 1. Understand why anger rises when you feel unheard. You know, one of the hardest things in life is staying calm when you feel like no one is listening, when you talk and people ignore you, when you share your feelings and someone brushes them off like they don't matter, when your effort, your truth, your pain gets dismissed. That's when anger rises. Not because you're a bad person, not because you can't control yourself, but because deep down, every human being wants one thing: to be understood. Anger often starts where understanding ends. You talk, and someone talks over you. You care, and they seem not to. You try to make peace, and they keep throwing fire. And something inside starts to tighten. Your chest gets heavy, your hands clench, your voice wants to rise. That's not weakness, that's human nature. But here's what most people never learn. If you don't understand why anger rises, you'll never be able to stop it. Every emotion has a reason behind it. Anger is not random, it's a signal. It says, hey, something doesn't feel fair. Something feels ignored. Something feels misunderstood. The problem is, most people don't stop to listen to that signal. They explode instead. They shout. They walk away. They cut people off. But the real strength, the real calm, comes from learning to understand what your anger is trying to say before it takes control. When you feel unheard, your brain goes into defense mode. It's the same response it has when it senses danger. You feel attacked, rejected, or invisible. So the mind prepares to fight back. But the truth is, in most situations, you're not in danger. You're just not being understood. The brain doesn't know the difference. That's why it reacts the same way it would if someone threatened you. That's why your heart starts racing and your breathing gets short. It's a natural response. But you can retrain that response. You can teach your mind that not being heard is not a war, it's an opportunity. Here's where awareness comes in. Calmness begins the moment you notice what's really happening inside you. When someone interrupts you, instead of getting angry, pay attention. Notice how your body reacts. Notice your chest, your shoulders, your jaw. Feel that tension? That's your body saying, I don't feel respected. Once you recognize it, you can respond differently. You can say to yourself, I'm feeling unheard right now. Just that small sentence can interrupt the pattern, because you've moved from reacting to understanding. The moment you label what's happening, you start taking your power back. Anger takes power away. Awareness brings it back. Calm people aren't born calm. They've practiced being aware. They've learned to separate emotion from reaction. When you understand the cause, you control the outcome. You can't control what people do. You can't make someone listen. You can't force them to care. But you can control your state. You can choose not to let their behavior control your peace. That's real power. The power to stay calm no matter what. Here's something to think about. When someone doesn't listen to you, it's easy to take it personally. But what if it's not about you? What if they're distracted? What if they don't have the emotional maturity to listen deeply? What if they're fighting their own battles inside? People can only meet you at the level of their awareness. Expecting them to understand you when they don't even understand themselves, that's setting yourself up for pain. So instead of trying to be heard by everyone, focus on being clear with yourself. Ask, what do I really want to express right now? If your goal is to be understood, start by understanding your own feelings. Calmness doesn't come from silence, it comes from clarity. When you're clear about what you feel and why, the need for others to validate it fades away. You stop fighting for attention and start standing in peace. When someone cuts you off mid-sentence, pause inside. Feel that moment. Don't rush to react. You can breathe. You can say to yourself, I choose calm over chaos. Every time you do this, you're training your nervous system to stay balanced. You're teaching your mind that you are safe, even when you feel unheard. That's emotional intelligence in action, not some fancy theory, but a real, lived practice. It's not about suppressing your anger, it's about transforming it. Suppression builds pressure, understanding releases it. The next time you feel ignored, instead of saying, they don't care about me, try saying, I feel frustrated because I wanted to be understood. See the difference? One creates conflict. The other creates self-awareness. That shift is where calmness begins. Some people think staying calm means being weak or passive, but that's wrong. Staying calm is the highest form of strength. Anyone can shout, anyone can blame, anyone can walk away. But it takes wisdom and maturity to stay steady when your emotions want to run wild. Calmness doesn't mean you accept disrespect. It means you choose your peace over pointless battles. When you stay calm, you start to see clearly. You realize not every situation deserves your reaction. Not every argument deserves your energy. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. But that silence must come from understanding, not from resentment. When your calmness comes from awareness, not avoidance, it becomes power. Think of all the times anger cost you peace, the words you wish you hadn't said, the arguments that solved nothing, the nights you stayed awake, replaying what you could have said better. All of that starts with one feeling, the feeling of not being heard. The next time that feeling comes, remember this: you don't need others to validate you to stay calm. You validate yourself by choosing control over reaction. It's not easy at first. You'll slip, you'll react, you'll get frustrated. But every time you catch yourself a little earlier, you're growing. Calmness is not perfection, it's progress. It's the slow, steady work of mastering your inner world. Here's a truth that changes everything. People's behavior is not about you. It's about them. Their tone, their impatience, their lack of listening, those are reflections of their state, not your worth. Once you truly understand that, you stop taking things so personally. You stop getting angry at the surface because you see the deeper truth beneath it. You see, anger is a shortcut. It's the mind's quick way of saying, this isn't fair. But calmness is the long game. It's saying, I choose peace over being right. When you start thinking like that, you stop fighting the world and start mastering yourself. Try this. The next time someone dismisses you, don't argue. Observe. Watch their face, listen to their tone, but stay inside your own peace. Feel the emotion rise, but don't follow it. That's emotional discipline. It's not about being cold, it's about being in control. You are the guardian of your own peace, and no one can take it from you unless you hand it over. Every person who has ever stayed calm in chaos learned one thing: people can only hear you when they're ready. And until they are, your calm presence speaks louder than your words ever could. When you understand this, something shifts inside. You stop trying to be understood by everyone. You start choosing peace as your default. You stop letting small moments ruin your day. You become grounded, centered, and unshakable. That's when people notice. They start saying, "You're different, you don't get upset like before." And you'll smile, because you'll know it's not that life got easier, it's that you got wiser. Anger drains energy. Calmness builds it. Anger narrows your view. Calmness expands it. Anger reacts to life. Calmness leads life. That's the real difference. And when you live from that space, everything changes. Imagine walking into any situation, a difficult conversation, a disrespectful comment, a tough day, and staying steady. Your heart rate stays low. Your mind stays clear. You hear the noise, but you don't absorb it. That's mastery. That's what it means to stay calm no matter what. This is not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring deeply, but wisely. You can still express yourself. You can still set boundaries. You can still stand for what's right. But you do it without losing yourself in the process, because losing your calm means losing your power. The world doesn't reward anger. It rewards those who can think clearly when others can't, those who can lead with peace when others panic, those who can listen even when they feel unheard. So start here. Understand your anger. Listen to it. It's trying to tell you something. It's not your enemy. It's your teacher. Once you understand it, you rise above it. You stop being controlled by people who don't see your worth, and you start being guided by your own awareness. That's how you grow. That's how you change your life. Calmness isn't a reaction, it's a decision. And once you learn to make that decision in moments when you feel unheard, you become untouchable. Not cold, not detached, but deeply centered, a person who knows who they are, no matter what others say or don't say. That's the power of staying calm. That's the path to never getting angry again. And that's where your real strength begins, inside the space between what happens and how you choose to respond. Chapter 2. Recognize your body signals before anger takes control. Anger never begins in the mind. It begins in the body. Long before words come out, long before thoughts turn sharp, your body speaks. It tightens. It heats up. It warns you. Most people never hear that warning. They only notice the explosion that comes after. But calmness is built in those early seconds, in the space where your body gives you signals that anger is on its way. The secret to staying calm, no matter what, is learning to recognize those signals before they take control. Your body is not your enemy, it's your messenger. Every emotion has a physical signature. When you start to get angry, your heart speeds up, your muscles tense, your breathing gets shallow. Maybe your jaw clenches or your hands tighten. Some people feel a knot in the stomach or heat rising in their face. Others get restless pacing, fidgeting, crossing arms, pulling away. These are not random. They are signs your nervous system has been triggered. The body is preparing for battle. It's saying, something feels wrong. Get ready to defend. But here's the truth most people don't know. Once the body takes over, the mind follows. That's why you say things you don't mean. That's why later you think, why did I react like that? You didn't decide to. Your body did. It reacted before your conscious mind could catch up. The real work of calmness is to train yourself to notice those signs early, when your body first whispers instead of waiting until it screams. You can only change what you can see. And anger hides best when you're unaware. The key is awareness through observation. The next time you start to feel irritated, stop and notice. Where in your body do you feel it? Is your breathing faster? Are your shoulders tight? Is your stomach uneasy? Just naming what's happening, my chest feels tight, or my throat feels heavy, pulls you out of automatic reaction. It's like turning on the light in a dark room. Suddenly, what was invisible becomes clear. And when it's clear, you have a choice. Anger isn't a problem to fix. it's a signal to understand. When your body tightens, it's not saying, attack. It's saying, pay attention. It's your cue to slow down, to create a pause between what's happening and how you respond. That pause is where peace lives. That's where wisdom begins. Calm people aren't calm because life is easy for them. They're calm because they've practiced listening to their body before reacting to the world. Every emotion leaves a footprint in the body. The reason anger feels powerful is because it floods your system with adrenaline. Your body thinks you're in danger, so it prepares to fight. Your pulse races, your breath shortens, your vision narrows. That's the ancient survival system doing its job. It was built to protect you from real danger, not from someone interrupting you, disagreeing with you, or saying something unkind. But your brain doesn't know that difference automatically. You have to teach it. This is why awareness is your greatest defense. When you feel your heartbeat rise, when you sense the heat building in your chest, you can choose to step back instead of stepping in. You can breathe. You can stretch. You can move your attention away from what triggered you and toward how your body feels. You may think that's small, but it's the moment you take your power back. The more often you catch those early signs, the easier it becomes to stay calm in the moments that used to control you. There's a point in every emotional storm when you can still choose peace. That point is early, before the shouting, before the regret, before the reaction. It happens in the body. You can't stop anger after it takes over, but you can stop it before it starts. Imagine you're talking to someone, and they say something unfair. You feel a rush in your chest. That's the signal. You feel your shoulders lift slightly. That's another signal. You're about to react. Now, instead of responding, you take one slow, deep breath. You don't rush to fix the situation. You just feel the air moving in and out. Your body starts to calm, and with that calm, your clarity returns. You can now choose how to respond rather than being pulled into reaction. The world teaches us to focus on what others say or do, but emotional mastery begins with focusing on your own internal signals. Your body gives you everything you need to understand yourself. It never lies. It doesn't fake calmness. If you learn to recognize tension early, you can relax it. If you notice your voice rising, you can lower it. If you feel heat in your face, you can pause before speaking. Those simple actions interrupt the automatic chain reaction that leads to anger. That's emotional discipline in its purest form, not pretending you're calm, but actually calming yourself through awareness. Some people say, "I just lose control too fast." That's because they skip the signs. They don't hear their body calling out for calm. The truth is, control doesn't come from willpower alone. It comes from understanding your biology. When you slow down enough to notice your heart rate, your breath, and your muscles, you shift your state. You tell your brain, "I'm not in danger," and your body listens. The adrenaline slows, the tension eases, the emotion fades. That's how you reclaim your calmness. Not through force, but through awareness. Take time to study your patterns. Think about the last few times you got angry. What did your body feel like right before? Did you feel pressure in your chest, heat in your face, tightness in your neck? That's your personal signal. Everyone's is different. Once you know yours, you'll start noticing it earlier and earlier. One day, you'll catch it so early that anger won't even form. You'll see it coming, and you'll say, "Not this time." That's growth. Most people think of calmness as something soft, but it's actually one of the hardest skills to develop. It takes awareness, honesty, and practice. You have to face your own reactions without judgment. You have to admit when your body is leading and your mind is following. You have to build the habit of stopping in the middle of emotion and saying, "What's happening inside me right now?" That simple question can change your entire emotional life. The body and mind are partners. The body feels first, the mind interprets second. So if you want to control the mind, start with the body. Calming your body is the fastest way to calm your thoughts. When your breathing slows, your mind quiets. When your muscles relax, your focus sharpens. When your heartbeat steadies, your clarity returns. This is why the practice of noticing is so powerful. Awareness changes everything. Start small. Throughout your day, check in with your body, even when you're not angry. Notice your breathing while waiting in line. Feel your shoulders while sitting in traffic. Observe your tone when speaking under mild stress. The more often you connect to your body, the stronger your awareness becomes. Then, when a real trigger appears, you're already prepared. You've trained yourself to feel before you react. That's the foundation of staying calm no matter what. Many people try to solve anger by changing external things, by changing people, jobs, or circumstances. But calmness doesn't depend on the outside world. It depends on your connection to yourself. You can't control every situation, but you can always recognize what's happening in your body. You can always slow down your breath. You can always bring your awareness back to the present. Those few seconds are where emotional mastery is built. There's something freeing about understanding yourself on this level. You stop being surprised by your own reactions. You start seeing patterns and understanding them. You begin to trust yourself more. You realize that calmness isn't luck. It's a skill. It's a practiced awareness of what's happening inside you, moment by moment. In difficult situations, you might not have the luxury of walking away. You might have to stay and deal with it. That's where this practice shines, because even when you can't leave, you can always breathe. You can always feel your feet on the ground. You can always relax your shoulders, unclench your hands, slow your voice. These small physical adjustments send a message to your brain that you are in control. The situation doesn't own you. You own your state. Every person who loses control wishes they could rewind a few seconds. Those seconds are where awareness matters most. If you can recognize the signs before anger rises, you change the outcome. Instead of breaking connection, you preserve it. Instead of regret, you gain respect both from others and from yourself. Because staying calm isn't just about avoiding anger. It's about living with integrity. It's about keeping your word to yourself, that you will no longer let outside things control your inner world. The power to stay calm lives in your awareness of your body. Think of every muscle, every breath, every heartbeat as part of your emotional language. When you listen to it, you understand yourself deeply. When you ignore it, you react blindly. Awareness gives you freedom. Freedom to choose your response, to stay clear, to keep your peace. And remember, you won't master this overnight. You'll have moments where anger still rises. That's fine. Every time you catch it earlier than before, you're improving. Every time you notice one new signal, you're building emotional intelligence. Calmness grows in layers: awareness first, practice second, control third. It's a process, not a performance. What makes a person truly powerful is not how loud they can be, but how steady they can stay. The world needs more steady people. People who don't fall apart when life gets hard. People who can stand still when emotions run high. That's what you're becoming when you learn to recognize your body's signals. You're training yourself to stay centered in a world that loves chaos. In every situation, your body gives you the earliest warning. All you have to do is pay attention. When you start noticing your body, you start mastering your emotions. When you master your emotions, you master your life. Calmness is not the absence of emotion, it's the understanding of it. The person who understands their own signals will always find peace faster than the one who ignores them. That's how you stop anger before it starts. You listen, you notice, you breathe, you stay aware. You trust that every signal your body sends is not a threat, but a message to pause, to reflect, to stay grounded. That's the real secret to never letting anger take control. It's not about avoiding life's challenges. It's about meeting them with awareness so deep that nothing can shake your inner balance. And once you live that way, when you can recognize your body's signals early and stay calm through anything, you don't just manage your emotions, you master them. You stop reacting to life and start leading it. You walk through storms with a quiet strength that no one can take away. That's calmness in its truest form, not empty, not cold, but powerful, aware, and free.
Chapter 3. Practice slowing down your reactions to stay balanced. Every time something upsets you, you have two choices. You can react fast and lose your balance, or you can slow down and stay in control. The difference between peace and chaos is the speed of your reaction. Most people don't lose their calm because of what happens. They lose it because they react too quickly. They speak before they think. They move before they breathe. They act on impulse instead of intention. Slowing down isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's how you stop the moment from owning you. In every heated situation, there's a small window where you can choose what happens next. It might be just a few seconds, but that's where your entire future reaction lives. When you rush through that space, you give away your power. When you slow down, you take it back. You see, reacting fast feels satisfying for a second, but it always costs you peace later. Slowing down feels uncomfortable at first because your emotions want to run wild, but with practice, it becomes your strongest habit, the ability to think clearly while others lose control. Your emotions are like waves. They rise, peak, and fall. The mistake is believing that the first rise needs a reaction. When anger or frustration appears, it's just a wave. If you slow down, the wave will pass. If you jump into it, you drown in it. Slowing down means stepping back long enough to see the bigger picture. It means asking yourself, is this really worth my peace? Most of the time it isn't. Most of the time what feels urgent in the moment means nothing a few hours later. When someone says something that triggers you, your first reaction will always be emotional. You can't stop that initial spark, but you can decide what happens next. Do you throw fuel on it, or do you pause and let it fade? The pause doesn't mean you're ignoring the problem. It means you're giving yourself time to understand it. A calm mind makes better decisions. A fast reaction only makes regret. The slower you move between stimulus and response, the wiser you become. Slowing down doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start choosing. You start valuing peace over proving a point. You stop letting every rude comment or stressful moment dictate your energy. Imagine what would happen if, instead of reacting instantly, you waited 3 seconds before speaking. Those 3 seconds could save you from hours of regret. Those 3 seconds could turn an argument into a conversation. That's how balance is built. One slow, conscious response at a time. The habit of slowing down begins with awareness. Pay attention to your pace in everyday life. Notice how you rush to answer texts, rush to respond in conversations, rush to defend yourself. Every rush comes from fear. The fear of not being understood, the fear of losing control, the fear of being wrong. But when you slow down, you realize you don't need to prove anything. You're already in control by choosing calm over chaos. There's a quiet strength in people who don't rush to respond. You can see it in their eyes. They're listening, processing, observing. They don't take the bait. They don't need to win every moment. They understand that time reveals truth and patience keeps balance. When you learn to slow down, you stop reacting to every emotion like it's a command. You become the one who decides how the moment will go, not the one dragged by it. It takes discipline to pause when emotions push you to react, but discipline is the muscle that builds balance. Every time you take a deep breath instead of shouting, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you count to 5 before replying, you make calmness your natural state. These small pauses may seem insignificant, but they rewire your entire emotional system. You start to see that nothing outside of you has power unless you hand it over through reaction. A fast reaction is driven by emotion. A slow response is guided by clarity. The moment you slow down, your perspective widens. You start noticing things you couldn't see before, the tone of the situation, the intent behind words, the real meaning beneath someone's anger. You realize that most conflicts are misunderstandings, not attacks, and you begin to handle people with empathy instead of defensiveness. In relationships, slowing down changes everything. Arguments cool faster, communication improves, understanding deepens, because when you stop rushing to defend yourself, you actually start hearing the other person. And often, that's all they needed to be heard. When one person slows down, the entire energy of the situation shifts. One calm person can settle 10 angry ones. That's the quiet influence of balance. In moments of stress, your body wants to react fast because it's wired to protect you. That's an ancient survival instinct. But most modern conflicts aren't life or death, they're emotional triggers. Your brain can't tell the difference unless you teach it. When you slow down, you send a signal to your body that you are safe. Your heart rate drops, your breathing steadies, and your thoughts clear. That's when your higher self steps in. The part of you that thinks long-term, that values peace, that sees beyond the moment. Balance isn't about avoiding emotion, it's about pacing it. When you slow down, you give space for your emotion to settle so you can respond with reason. Think about how many times reacting fast has led to more problems. Think about the arguments that got worse because you spoke too soon. Every time you slow down, you prevent that chain reaction. You protect your peace before it's disturbed. One of the most powerful things you can do when you feel triggered is to pause and check your tone. Your tone often decides how others react to you. A calm tone invites understanding. A sharp tone invites conflict. If you slow down enough to choose your tone, you're already ahead. You're already in control. You can turn a tense situation into a respectful exchange just by adjusting the pace of your response. Slowing down also helps you catch the real cause of your emotion. Often anger or frustration isn't about the moment in front of you. It's about something deeper. When you rush, you miss that connection. When you slow down, you see it clearly. You realize the argument isn't about the words said, it's about feeling disrespected, unappreciated, or misunderstood. Once you identify the real cause, you can address it calmly, instead of reacting blindly. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what's right at the right time. There's a big difference between delay and discipline. Delaying is avoid discipline, is choosing to wait until you can act from strength instead of emotion. When you learn that difference, life becomes lighter. You stop rushing to fix, to control, to explain. You start trusting that not every reaction deserves your energy. The best leaders, parents, partners, and friends share one thing in common. They know how to slow down. They think before they act, they listen before they speak, they breathe before they decide. That's what gives them presence. You feel safe around people like that because they don't bring chaos, they bring clarity. You can become that kind of person by mastering your reactions. The slower you respond, the stronger your presence becomes. Slowing down is not only a skill for conflict, it's a way of living. Rushing through life creates tension. Moving with calm intention creates peace. When you slow down, you begin to notice life again. The way your breath feels, the way your heart beats, the way moments actually unfold. You realize that life doesn't demand speed, it demands presence. And presence only comes when you stop racing through every thought and feeling. Sometimes slowing down means walking away for a few minutes. Sometimes it means staying quiet until you've gathered your thoughts. Sometimes it means choosing not to respond at all. Not every situation needs an immediate answer. Silence is also a response, and often the most powerful one, because silence gives space for both sides to reflect. In that space, balance returns. The hardest part about slowing down is fighting the urge to win. Your ego wants to win every exchange. It wants the last word, the final say, the validation. But your soul wants peace. When you slow down, you start listening to your soul instead of your ego. You realize that staying balanced feels better than being right. You start valuing peace more than pride. You can train this habit in simple ways. When you're in a hurry, slow your walk. When you're frustrated, breathe before you speak. When you're about to argue, pause and ask yourself if it's worth it. Each time you do, you teach your nervous system that calmness is safe. The more you practice, the faster your body learns that slowing down is strength, not weakness. Over time, slowing down will change how people see you. They'll notice your steadiness. They'll trust your words more because they come from reflection, not reaction. You'll earn respect, not by being loud, but by being clear. You'll stop wasting energy on small things and start saving it for what truly matters. That's the reward of balance. You stop scattering your energy on emotions that don't serve you. When you live this way, you become unshakable. Stressful days don't throw you off. Difficult people don't control your emotions. Unexpected problems don't break your focus. You face life with a calm rhythm. You may still feel frustration, but you handle it with grace. You may still face pressure, but you stay grounded under it. You move slower, think deeper, and live wiser. That's the power of slowing down your reactions. It's not about changing your emotions. It's about mastering your timing. It's about giving yourself enough space to act from wisdom instead of impulse. You'll notice that once you start living slower internally, the world outside starts to feel more peaceful too. Because your calm becomes contagious, your steadiness influences others to slow down too. You don't have to change your personality to stay balanced. You just have to change your pace. Every second you give yourself before reacting builds a stronger, calmer version of you. And that version is capable of handling anything. Conflict, stress, loss, or pressure, without losing composure. Slowing down is how you find strength in softness and clarity in chaos. In every difficult moment, remember this: you are not your first reaction. You are the awareness that decides what comes next. The slower you make that decision, the wiser it becomes. The world moves fast, but your peace depends on how slowly you choose to respond. And once you master that pace, you'll find that no situation, no word, no person can throw you off balance again. You'll move through life steady, calm and fully in control of yourself, and that is the highest form of strength a human being can reach.
Chapter 4. Learn to see problems without taking them personally. One of the greatest reasons people lose their peace is because they take everything personally. Every disagreement feels like an attack. Every mistake feels like a failure. Every obstacle feels like the world is against them. But the truth is, most of what happens around you has nothing to do with you. People act from their own fears, pain, and confusion. Life throws challenges your way, not to target you, but to test your growth. Learning to see problems without taking them personally is one of the highest forms of emotional intelligence. It's the skill that separates reactive minds from peaceful ones.
When you take things personally, you make every problem heavier than it is. Someone criticizes your work, and suddenly it becomes a statement about your worth. A plan doesn't go your way, and you feel like life is punishing you. But not every no means rejection, and not every disagreement means disrespect. Sometimes things just happen. People have moods, life changes direction, timing shifts. The world doesn't revolve around our emotions. It simply moves as it should. When you realize that, you stop fighting reality and start finding peace within it. The human mind is built to interpret, not to observe. It doesn't just see events, it assigns meaning to them. That's why two people can face the same situation and feel completely different emotions. One sees a problem as personal, the other sees it as information. The first reacts, the second learns. Calm people don't have fewer problems, they just see them with more distance. They understand that problems are part of the process, not a reflection of their value. This perspective gives them freedom. Every time something goes wrong, you have two voices inside. One says, "Why is this happening to me?" The other says, "What is this trying to teach me?" The first voice creates stress, the second creates growth. Taking things personally is listening to the first voice. Wisdom is choosing the second. Life is not against you, it's shaping you. Every challenge carries a message if you're calm enough to hear it. When people criticize or misunderstand you, it's easy to feel attacked. But most of the time their reaction is about them, not you. A rude comment often reflects their frustration. An impatient tone reveals their stress. A harsh judgment mirrors their own insecurity. When you take their behavior personally, you start carrying emotions that don't belong to you. You allow their storm to enter your sky. The real strength is to let people have their weather while you stay in your sunlight. You can observe without absorbing. You can tell how free a person is by how little they take personally. The more confident and self-aware you become, the less you need others to agree with you. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing constant approval. You realize that what people think of you doesn't change who you are. Their opinion is just a reflection of their experience. Once you separate yourself from that, you stop being easily shaken. Seeing problems objectively doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care wisely. You still notice pain. You still address mistakes, but you don't let them define you. You can say, "This is hard," without saying, "This is about me." That simple shift changes everything. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically. You see patterns instead of punishments. You focus on solutions instead of self-blame. Every time you take something personally, you hand your peace to someone else. You let their behavior decide your mood. You let their words dictate your self-esteem. But when you stop taking things personally, you take that power back. You start choosing your own emotional state instead of renting it out to others. You become the calm one in the room, the person who doesn't get thrown off by every comment or criticism. To master this, you have to understand projection. People often project their own pain onto others. When someone is angry, they want to transfer that anger somewhere. When someone feels inadequate, they criticize others to feel superior. When someone feels insecure, they try to control or belittle. Once you see this clearly, you stop taking their behavior as truth. You recognize it as reflection. You can stay grounded while others act out their inner chaos. In life you'll face unfairness, disrespect, and misunderstanding. You can't avoid it, but you can choose your perception. You can see every situation as feedback, not as insult. You can tell yourself, "This is information, not injury." That small change builds resilience. Problems lose their emotional sting when you stop seeing them as personal failures and start seeing them as part of being human. Think about how much peace you would have if you didn't take everything personal. Imagine going through your day without being disturbed by what others think, say, or do. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you breathe and move on. A friend forgets to call, you wish them well and keep your peace. A coworker disagrees, you listen calmly without turning it into a battle. That's not indifference, that's maturity. You're not cold, you're stable. Taking things personally often comes from insecurity. When your sense of worth depends on others' opinions, every small comment feels big. But when your worth comes from within, outside noise loses its power. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need every situation to go your way. You just need to stay aligned with your values. When you live that way, problems stop feeling personal because you no longer measure yourself by outcomes. Seeing problems clearly requires detachment, not distance. Detachment doesn't mean disconnecting from life. It means engaging with it without letting it consume you. It's saying, I can handle this without losing myself in it. The most successful people are detached from results. They put in their best effort and accept whatever follows. That mindset keeps them steady through failure and success alike. You'll notice that people who take things personally are often exhausted. Every small thing hurts them. Every opinion weighs them down. They live on emotional roller coasters. But people who see life objectively carry a lightness. They can laugh at mistakes, forgive faster, and move on easier. They understand that not everything needs an emotional reaction. Sometimes things just are, and that's enough. The moment you stop personalizing problems, you start solving them. When your mind is free from emotional noise, you can think clearly. You see possibilities instead of pain. You notice options you couldn't see before because your ego was too loud. Most of the time, it's not the situation that blocks progress. It's the story you tell yourself about it. Change the story, and the problem changes shape. Life will keep giving you chances to practice this. You'll face criticism, rejection, delays, and disappointment. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what can I learn from this? That simple question turns frustration into focus. It gives your mind direction instead of reaction. Every time you choose understanding over offense, you grow stronger. When you stop taking things personally, you also communicate better. You listen to understand, not to defend. You respond instead of reacting. You don't twist other people's words into proof of your pain. You hear what's said instead of what you fear. This kind of communication builds trust. People feel safer around you because your calmness shows you're not ruled by emotion. You'll also notice that calm people attract calm situations. When you don't react emotionally, others adjust their tone around you. You set the emotional temperature of every room you walk into. Your steadiness invites respect. Your ability to stay composed inspires others to handle their own emotions better. This is how calmness influences without force. It teaches by presence, not preaching. There's a deep freedom in realizing that problems are neutral until you assign them meaning. You can interpret any event as a personal attack or as a passing challenge. That choice determines how much power it has over you. You can choose peace by refusing to make yourself the center of every storm. Not everything is about you, and that's liberating. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means guiding them. You can still acknowledge hurt, disappointment, or frustration, but you don't need to build your identity around them. You can say, this situation was painful, without saying, I am the pain. When you learn that difference, emotions pass through you instead of staying inside you. You stop collecting them like heavy stones. The more you practice this, the lighter you become. You stop reacting to every challenge with self-blame. You stop overthinking every comment. You stop chasing explanations for people's behavior. Instead, you give yourself grace. You remind yourself that other people's actions are reflections of their journey, not a mirror of your value. You can stay compassionate without carrying their burdens. Life becomes simpler when you stop taking things personally. The world feels less hostile. People seem easier to understand. You begin to see that everyone is fighting unseen battles, and their behavior is just a symptom of that struggle. Once you understand this, forgiveness becomes easier, patience becomes natural, and peace becomes your default state. The next time a problem appears, step back. Ask yourself, what if this has nothing to do with me? That question alone removes half your stress. It brings distance between you and the situation. In that space, you can see clearly. You can make decisions based on logic, not emotion. You can act from wisdom instead of impulse. The goal isn't to avoid problems. It's to stop letting them define your emotional world. Problems are teachers, not enemies. They show you where you still take things too personally, where you still give away your peace too easily. Every challenge is a mirror showing your current level of self-mastery. When you reach the point where you can see a problem, acknowledge it, and still feel calm inside, you've grown beyond most people. You've learned that peace doesn't depend on perfection. It depends on perspective, and your perspective is entirely within your control. You can choose to live as if life is happening to you, or you can live as if life is happening for you. One makes you a victim, the other makes you free. Learning to see problems without taking them personally is a lifelong practice. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally wise. You still care, you still feel, but you no longer crumble under every challenge. You observe more, you judge less, you respond with clarity. That's what emotional maturity looks like. That's what calmness truly is. The power to stay peaceful inside no matter what happens outside.
Chapter 5. Build mental space between feeling hurt and responding. There's a moment between getting hurt and saying something you'll regret. It's small, but it's powerful. That moment is your space, the mental distance between pain and reaction. Most people don't have that space. They feel hurt and they speak. They feel insulted and they defend. They feel misunderstood and they fight back. But the people who stay calm no matter what have learned how to build space in their minds before responding. They've learned how to let emotions settle before words move forward. That's not suppression. That's strength. It's the ability to stay in charge of yourself when your emotions are trying to take control. When you feel hurt, your mind wants relief right away. It wants to prove, explain, or fight back. But reacting instantly only adds fuel to the pain. The wiser way is to pause and give yourself mental breathing room. You don't ignore what you feel. You acknowledge it without letting it rule you. You step back and observe your reaction instead of living inside it. That short pause might last 2 seconds or 2 minutes, but in that time, you choose awareness over impulse. And that single choice can change everything about how you handle life. Building mental space means not allowing your emotions to decide your next move. You can still feel deeply, but you don't act until you understand. That's maturity. It's the difference between reacting from pain and responding from clarity. The mind can't think clearly when it's clouded by hurt. You have to let the storm settle before you see what's real. That's why calm people seem unshakable. They've mastered the art of waiting for emotional clarity before they respond. When someone says something that cuts you, your body feels it first. Your heart tightens, your chest gets heavy, your thoughts race. That's the emotional trigger firing. Most people speak right there, in that heat. But what if you didn't? What if you took a breath instead of defending yourself? What if you said nothing until your heartbeat slowed? That's how you start building mental space. You train yourself to let the first wave pass before doing anything. The emotion will fade, and once it does, your wisdom can speak. The space between hurt and reaction is not about delay. It's about direction. It gives you time to see the truth of the situation. Maybe the person didn't mean to hurt you. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe what they said has nothing to do with you at all.
When you react fast, you miss all those possibilities. When you slow down, you start to see reality instead of assumption. That's how peace is protected, through awareness that comes from distance. In that space, you can ask yourself simple but powerful questions. What am I really feeling right now? What does this situation actually mean? Do I need to respond, or can I just release it? These questions shift your focus from pain to understanding. They remind you that not every wound needs a war, and not every slight deserves a speech. The more often you ask these questions, the more natural it becomes to hold your peace instead of losing it. Building this mental space requires practice, because your emotions will always try to pull you into reaction. The mind wants to fix discomfort immediately. But real growth comes from learning to sit in discomfort without rushing to fix it. You allow the feeling to exist without letting it define your behavior. That's emotional maturity. Acknowledging hurt without becoming it. It's saying, I feel this, but I am not this. There's power in silence, not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of control. When you don't respond right away, you're not weak. You're wise. You're giving yourself a chance to respond with intention instead of emotion. Most regrets come from speaking too soon. Very few come from waiting until you understand. That's why the most peaceful people are often the quietest in conflict. They don't let pain rush them. Building mental space also means separating your identity from your feelings. Just because you feel hurt doesn't mean you're broken. Just because you feel attacked doesn't mean you are. Emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent truth. When you give yourself time to observe them, they pass. But if you let them drive your reactions, they control your life. The space you create allows emotions to move through without leaving damage behind. In that pause, you also give others a chance to reveal themselves. When you don't react instantly, you see things more clearly. People show their real intentions when you stay calm. Sometimes you'll realize it wasn't personal. Other times you'll learn who's worth engaging with and who isn't. Either way, silence gives you power. Reaction gives it away. This space also protects your relationships. Words said in anger are hard to take back. When you respond from a calm mind, you preserve respect. You can express how you feel without destroying trust. You can communicate your hurt without adding more pain. That's how mature relationships survive conflicts. Not by avoiding them, but by handling them with awareness instead of heat. The practice of mental space begins with small moments. Someone interrupts you, you pause before responding. A text frustrates you, you wait before replying. A misunderstanding arises, you breathe before explaining. Each pause builds emotional strength. Over time, that strength becomes your default. You no longer need to force calmness. It becomes your natural state. You respond slower, but stronger. You speak fewer words, but they carry more truth. Your mind becomes clearer when you stop rushing to react. You start to notice patterns in your own emotions. Maybe you always react fast when you feel disrespected. Maybe your tone changes when you feel ignored. Once you see these patterns, you can separate the situation from the emotion. You start asking, am I reacting to what they said, or to what I'm afraid it means? That kind of awareness transforms pain into power. When hurt comes, and it will, remind yourself that you don't owe anyone an immediate reaction. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself time to think. You owe yourself the right to respond when you're ready. The world moves fast, but emotional control moves slow. And that slowness is not laziness. It's wisdom in action. Every moment you pause, you're choosing to protect your energy from unnecessary chaos. Creating this space also helps you heal faster. When you react too soon, you often add new wounds to old ones. But when you pause, you let old wounds breathe instead of bleed. You start to see that hurt is just a signal calling for understanding, not a command demanding reaction. You learn to comfort yourself before confronting others. That self-soothing becomes your anchor in emotional storm. The greatest gift of building mental space is self-respect. You start treating your emotions as sacred instead of explosive. You begin to value peace more than being right. You stop allowing every situation to pull you out of balance. You no longer hand your calm to people who haven't earned it. That's what emotional mastery looks like. Responding from your higher self instead of your wounded self. It also changes how you see strength. Real strength isn't in reacting faster. It's in responding wiser. It's not in showing emotion loudly. It's in channeling it consciously. When you can pause between hurt and response, you carry a quiet authority. You're no longer controlled by others' words or actions. You respond because you choose to, not because you have to. That freedom is what most people spend their whole lives searching for. The space between feeling hurt and responding is like a doorway. On one side is reaction, chaos, and regret. On the other is clarity, peace, and growth. You walk through that doorway every time you choose awareness over emotion. You don't suppress how you feel. You simply give it time to make sense. You don't build walls around your heart. You build wisdom inside your mind. When something hurts, it's okay to step back and say, I need a moment. That simple sentence protects your calm. You're not running away. You're resetting. You're creating enough room for your emotions to settle, so your response aligns with your values. Most damage in relationships happens because people skip this step. They speak from pain instead of purpose. But when you practice space, your communication becomes healing, not harmful. Over time, this becomes who you are. You no longer fear emotional triggers because you trust yourself to handle them. You know that you can feel hurt and still stay calm. You can be disappointed and still be kind. You can face conflict and still remain steady. That's balance. Not the absence of emotion, but mastery over it. Building mental space is not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring intelligently. It's about respecting your own peace enough to protect it before responding. It's about understanding that reacting too quickly rarely fixes anything. It just adds noise to pain. True peace lives in the pause. Every situation gives you a choice. React from emotion or respond from wisdom. The more space you create between the two, the more powerful you become. Your relationships improve. Your confidence grows. Your life feels lighter because you're no longer dragged by every feeling that arises. You move through life with a calm rhythm, feeling everything, but being controlled by nothing. You can start practicing today. The next time you feel hurt, pause, feel your body, breathe deeply. Let the first emotion pass. Don't rush to reply, explain, or defend. Just wait. In that stillness, you'll feel your balance return. The words that come after that pause will be clearer, kinder, and more truthful. They'll reflect who you really are, not who pain tries to make you become. The person who can pause before responding holds immense power, not power over others, but over themselves, because that's the kind of power that builds peace. It's the kind that allows you to walk through life unshaken. You won't avoid hurt. That's part of being human, but you'll meet it with strength. You'll meet it with understanding. You'll meet it with space. And that space is where calmness lives. Steady, quiet, and unbreakable, no matter what life brings your way.
Chapter 6. Train your mind to stay calm under unfair treatment. Unfair treatment is one of the hardest things for a human being to face calmly. When you do your best and someone disrespects you, when you speak the truth and someone twists your words, when you act with good intentions and still get blamed, that burns deeply. It strikes at your sense of justice. It makes you want to defend yourself, shout, or walk away. But unfairness is part of life. You can't stop it from happening, but you can decide how you face it. Training your mind to stay calm when you're treated unfairly is not about giving up your strength. It's about learning to use your strength wisely. The truth is, people won't always treat you fairly because not everyone sees clearly. Some are driven by ego, others by insecurity, and some simply by ignorance. Many act unfairly not out of intention but out of blindness. They only see their side. If you react emotionally to every unfair moment,
you give them control over your peace. The calm mind, on the other hand, sees unfairness without becoming it. It recognizes the wrong, but doesn't allow the wrong to define its state. The first step in staying calm under unfair treatment is accepting that fairness is not guaranteed in this world. You can be kind and still be judged. You can be honest and still be doubted. You can work hard and still be overlooked. When you understand that, you stop expecting perfect justice from imperfect people. You start focusing on what you can control: your behavior, your mindset, your dignity. Calmness doesn't mean you approve of the unfairness. It means you refuse to let it break you. Every unfair act is a test of emotional maturity. The moment someone treats you unfairly, your emotions rise fast. Anger, disbelief, sadness, they all rush in at once. That's natural. But that first emotional wave is not your decision. What comes next is, if you train your mind to pause in that moment, to breathe before reacting, you stop the unfairness from reaching deeper into your peace. You remind yourself that your self-control is stronger than someone else's behavior. A calm response to unfairness is not silence born of fear. It's silence born of understanding. It's the kind of silence that says, I see what's happening, but I choose not to lower myself to that level. There's power in that. You're not denying your emotions, you're mastering them. You're showing yourself that you don't need to fight every battle to prove your worth. Your calmness becomes your statement. Your steadiness becomes your strength. When people treat you unfairly, it's often because they're projecting something. Maybe they envy your peace. Maybe they feel small and want to make you feel smaller. Maybe they simply can't handle someone who stays centered while they live in chaos. If you recognize that their actions are a reflection of them, not a measure of you, your reaction changes. Instead of saying, why me? You start thinking, that's their problem, not my identity. And with that thought, you step back into power. It helps to remind yourself that staying calm doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It means you handle the situation with clarity instead of anger. You can set boundaries firmly without shouting. You can express truth without losing composure. You can walk away from unfairness without bitterness. Calmness doesn't silence justice, it sharpens it. Because when you speak from calm, your words carry more weight. People listen to the one who doesn't crumble. Training your mind for calmness takes practice. It's not built in comfort, it's built in confrontation. Each time you experience unfairness, you have a chance to strengthen this muscle. When you feel anger rising, you can tell yourself, I will not let this moment control me. When someone speaks unfairly, you can focus on your breathing instead of their words. The more often you do it, the faster your brain learns that peace is your default, not anger. Sometimes the most unfair situations come from people you care about. That hurts even more because it feels like betrayal. In those moments, calmness doesn't come easily, but you must remind yourself that other people's behavior is not your mirror. You don't need to match their energy. You can love them and still stay firm. You can care without collapsing. You can feel pain and still choose not to act from it. Emotional control is not denial. It's discipline. It's choosing to protect your balance even when your heart aches. You can also remind yourself that time reveals truth. Unfair people might seem powerful for a while, but life has a way of exposing behavior. If you stay consistent, your calmness becomes your evidence. You don't need to rush to defend yourself. Your steadiness will do it for you. When you react wildly, you feed their narrative. When you stay calm, you let the truth speak on its own. That's why patience is not weakness. It's wisdom waiting to show itself. Unfair treatment often triggers an inner dialogue. You start thinking, I don't deserve this. Why would they treat me this way? That pain is valid, but you don't have to let it consume you. You can shift the question. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what can I learn from this? Maybe it's teaching you emotional control. Maybe it's showing you who not to trust. Maybe it's building resilience you'll need later. Every unfair situation carries a hidden lesson. If you're calm enough to see it, your peace is like a shield. It doesn't stop arrows from being shot, but it stops them from piercing your soul. Unfairness will happen, but if your mind is trained to stay centered, you walk through it untouched. People might misunderstand you, speak against you, or treat you poorly. You don't have to match their energy. You can rise above it. You can stay grounded in your values instead of reacting to their moods. You can look at their behavior and say quietly, "This is about them, not about me." Calmness under unfair treatment comes from self-trust. When you know who you are, others can't easily shake you. Their words may sting, but they don't define you. Their actions may offend, but they don't reduce your worth. You start seeing unfair treatment as noise, not truth. You stop looking for fairness from those who are incapable of giving it. That's freedom. Knowing your value doesn't decrease because someone else can't see it. There will be times when you have to speak up against unfairness, and that's fine. But even then you can do it from calm. You can state facts without anger. You can set boundaries without aggression. You can hold people accountable without losing your peace. Calm doesn't mean passive. It means powerful with direction. It means you know exactly when and how to respond for the best outcome. The hardest part about unfair treatment is feeling powerless. You can't control what others do, but calmness reminds you that you still control yourself. You control your tone, your reaction, your energy. You decide what kind of person you'll be in the face of wrong. And when you choose calmness, you send a message to life itself. I will not let darkness decide my light. That mindset changes everything. You stop being reactive and start being responsive. You stop being dragged into other people's chaos. If you think about it, unfairness teaches emotional independence. It forces you to build strength that doesn't depend on approval. When life treats you unfairly and you remain centered, you're proving that your peace is self-made. You're no longer moved by the noise of others. You move by purpose, not by provocation. That's where calm confidence grows. From knowing you can handle the unfair without losing your kindness. You can practice this in everyday life. When someone cuts in line, when a coworker takes credit, when someone talks over you, notice your instinct to react. Then breathe. Remind yourself, this moment doesn't define me. Choose to respond when you're clear, not when you're triggered. Each small practice strengthens your ability to stay calm in bigger storms. Emotional mastery is built through repetition, moment by moment, day by day. Eventually your mind becomes trained to pause automatically. The unfair treatment still happens, but you don't feel attacked anymore. You see it, acknowledge it, and move forward. You handle it directly when necessary, but without emotional overflow. People will notice your steadiness. Some will respect it, others may test it, but your calm will remain, because you're not acting for them. You're acting for your peace. Calmness under unfairness also gives you perspective. When emotions settle, you can see what's really going on. You can make smarter decisions, because your mind isn't clouded by anger. You can focus on solutions instead of drama. You can find ways to protect yourself wisely instead of reacting impulsively. That's how calmness becomes an advantage. It helps you stay strategic when others lose control. There's a quiet kind of dignity in staying calm when you're wrong. It doesn't mean you accept injustice. It means you refuse to let injustice steal your inner stability. You keep your energy clean. You keep your focus forward. You handle what you must, then let go of what you can't change. Every time you choose calmness, you win a battle within yourself, and that's the only battle that truly matters. At some point, you realize that unfair treatment is not a reflection of your failure. It's a reflection of life's imperfection. Everyone faces it. The question is not whether it happens, but how you rise above it. You can either let it harden you, or help you grow. The calm mind always chooses growth. It learns to turn pain into patience, anger into wisdom, and frustration into strength. A person who can stay calm under unfair treatment becomes unstoppable, because if unfairness can't shake you, nothing can. You move through the world with a quiet power. You don't waste energy proving yourself. Your consistency does that for you. You don't chase fairness from others. You create fairness within yourself by treating others as you wish to be treated. That's how calmness changes, not only your reactions, but your entire way of living. And maybe the most liberating truth is this: fairness from others will always be uncertain, but fairness toward yourself is always a choice. When you stay calm, you're being fair to your own mind. You're protecting it from unnecessary chaos. You're saying, I choose peace even when life doesn't play fair. That choice is your strength, your freedom, and your quiet victory over everything that tries to disturb your balance. Train your mind every day. Notice unfairness, but don't absorb it. Feel pain, but don't become it. Act with integrity, even when others don't. Because calmness under unfair treatment is not just emotional control. It's the highest form of self-respect. It's the decision to rise higher than the situation, to walk with dignity when others lose theirs, and to let your peace speak louder than any injustice ever could.
Chapter 7. Let go of the need to prove you are right. One of the biggest thieves of inner peace is the constant urge to prove you are right. It hides deep in the mind, disguised as pride, disguised as justice, disguised as the need to be understood. When you feel misunderstood, when someone twists your words, or when people reject your truth, that need to explain yourself can grow into frustration. You tell yourself, they need to know the truth, they need to see I'm right, but the harder you try to prove it, the more drained you become. Because in truth, peace and the need to be right can't live in the same space. One feeds the ego, the other feeds the soul. There's something deeply human about wanting others to understand you. You want your intentions seen. You want your efforts recognized. You want your truth accepted. But not everyone will see the world through your lens. Some people are too stubborn to listen. Some are too proud to admit you might have a point. And some simply don't care about understanding, they just want to win. If you build your peace around convincing them, you'll always be exhausted. You can't make closed minds open. You can only keep yours clear. Letting go of the need to be right doesn't mean you stop standing for truth. It means you stop fighting battles that lead nowhere. It means you value peace over ego. You understand that being right doesn't always make life better, but being calm always does. Sometimes silence says more than any argument. Sometimes walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. Because the more you argue with those who can't hear you, the more you lose yourself trying to win something that doesn't matter. When you're trying to prove yourself, your energy shifts from peace to tension. Your mind races with justifications, your tone sharpens. You replay conversations in your head, thinking of what you should have said. You carry invisible weight, trying to control what others think of you. But the truth is, people will believe what fits their perspective, not necessarily what's true. You can present facts, evidence and clarity, and still be misunderstood. And when you realize that, you also realize how freeing it is to stop trying. Freedom comes when you no longer need to win arguments to feel at peace. You start to understand that your calmness is proof enough. Time proves more than words ever will. The truth has a way of surfacing without your effort, and those who need to believe lies will eventually face their own reflection. Your job isn't to convince, it's to stay aligned with your value, because nothing is more powerful than a person who knows they're right but doesn't need to prove it. The mind loves validation. It wants acknowledgement, it wants to be seen as smart, fair and capable. That's why arguments feel addictive, they feed the ego's hunger. You feel a rush when you win. But that rush fades quickly and leaves tension behind. And deep down, you know that peace feels better than being right. Peace lasts longer,
Peace doesn't need applause. When you reach that understanding, you begin to move differently. You listen more and argue less. You observe more and react less. You learn that silence often ends conflicts faster than words. Sometimes the desire to prove yourself comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being overlooked, fear of losing respect. But true self-respect doesn't need an audience. It's quiet. It's internal. It's built on knowing your truth so deeply that external approval becomes irrelevant. The more you strengthen that inner knowing, the less you need to explain it. You can simply say, "I know who I am," and let that be enough. There will always be people who misunderstand your intentions. You could explain yourself 100 times, and they would still twist your words to fit their story. So why keep trying? Every time you engage in unnecessary battles, you give away your peace. You can walk away not because you're weak, but because you value your time too much to waste it on misunderstanding. People who want to understand you will. Those who don't never will. No matter how clear you are, that's not your fault, and it's not your job to fix. Letting go of the need to prove you're right is not surrender. It's mastery. It's realizing that energy spent defending your truth is better used living it. When you live authentically, your actions become your evidence. You don't need to tell people who you are, they'll see it, and even if they don't, you'll still be at peace, because your self-worth no longer depends on their recognition. Think about how many conflicts would disappear if people stopped trying to win and started trying to understand. The moment you stop proving, the argument ends. It doesn't matter if the other person keeps talking. You don't have to match their energy. You can listen, stay calm, and simply say, "I see it differently." That one sentence has more power than 1,000 defensive ones, because it closes the door on ego and opens the door to peace. Learning to let go also means learning to be okay with misunderstanding. People will misjudge you. They'll misinterpret your words. They'll form opinions based on fragments of truth. You can't chase every misunderstanding down. If you do, you'll spend your whole life explaining instead of living. Sometimes the most mature thing you can do is let them think what they want and move on. Life always shows who was right in the end, but by then you'll no longer care. You'll be too focused on peace. There's a strange power in not reacting. When someone expects you to argue and you don't, it confuses them. When they expect anger and you give calm, it disarms them. They can't fight what refuses to fight back. That's the quiet strength of self-control. It turns arguments into lessons. It shows that your peace is not for sale, no matter how unfair the situation. That kind of calmness doesn't just change your life, it changes how others treat you. Because when people realize you can't be provoked, they start respecting your presence. Sometimes you'll be in situations where you know you're right but can't prove it at work, in relationships, with family. In those moments, remember that truth doesn't need to shout. It survives in silence. It doesn't need defenders, it needs time. People who live with integrity will always find peace, eventually, even when misunderstood. Because integrity doesn't crumble under opinion, it stands firm on reality. Letting go of the need to be right also means accepting imperfection. You might not always have the full picture. You might be wrong sometimes, and that's okay. Growth doesn't come from being right, it comes from staying open. When you stop clinging to the idea of always knowing best, you become teachable. You start seeing different perspectives, you start learning from people instead of fighting them. That openness builds wisdom, and wisdom naturally replaces the ego's need to dominate. The ego thrives on comparison and competition. It wants to win every exchange, but the heart thrives on peace and understanding. When you train your mind to follow your heart, you begin to rise above ego battles. You start valuing inner balance over outer victory. You realize that no argument, no validation, no public acknowledgement can give you what self-awareness already gives you. The quiet confidence of knowing your truth. There's another reason why it's wise to let go of the need to prove you're right. People remember how you made them feel more than what you said. When you argue endlessly, they stop hearing your words and only feel your tension. But when you remain calm and grounded, they remember your presence. Your calm becomes the lesson. You teach not through debate, but through example. Letting go doesn't mean you stop speaking your truth when needed. It means you speak it once with clarity and then release the outcome. You don't repeat yourself to force understanding. You say your truth, and you let silence finish the sentence. If they listen, wonderful. If they don't, that's their choice. Either way, you keep your peace. Because once you've spoken your truth, your job is done. When you live this way, something beautiful happens. You become lighter. You stop replaying conversations in your mind. You stop overanalyzing people's opinions. You stop wasting energy trying to convince those committed to misunderstanding you. You start sleeping better, thinking clearer, and walking with quiet confidence. Your calmness becomes your proof. Your peace becomes your statement. The most peaceful people in the world are not those who are always right. They're the ones who no longer need to be. They've learned that rightness doesn't always equal happiness. You can win an argument and lose your peace. You can prove your point and still feel empty. But when you choose peace, you win something far greater. You win yourself. If you ever feel tempted to argue just to prove a point, ask yourself, what will this give me that peace cannot? Most times the answer is nothing. No argument is worth your inner balance. No opinion is worth your mental clarity. The moment you realize that, you'll start walking away from arguments with a calm smile instead of a restless heart. Your strength isn't shown in how loud you speak, it's shown in how little you need to defend. The more peaceful you become, the less you explain. You stop trying to prove you're right because you know the truth doesn't change based on who believes it. And the people meant to understand you will do so without force. Peaceful living is built on letting go of control, letting go of judgment, and especially letting go of the need to prove yourself. When you stop needing others to agree, you become free. You start living from authenticity instead of approval. You stop wasting energy on people who drain you, and you start giving that energy to growth, purpose, and joy. The more you practice this, the more powerful it becomes. You'll notice that your reactions slow down. Your tolerance increases. Your relationships improve because you no longer turn every disagreement into a competition. You start to enjoy listening more than speaking. You start to feel strength in restraint. You start to find peace in not having to win. The person who doesn't need to be right lives lighter. They move with ease because they no longer carry the weight of constant defense. They walk into discussions ready to understand, not to conquer. That kind of energy transforms everything it touches. It creates harmony, respect, and balance. So the next time someone challenges you, misunderstands you, or questions your truth, remember this: you don't have to prove anything. You already know who you are. You already know what's true. Your calmness will speak for you more clearly than any argument ever could. The need to be right is a cage. Peace is freedom. And when you finally choose peace, you realize you never needed to win to feel whole. You just needed to let go.
Chapter 8. Replace judgment with curiosity when people disappoint you. When someone disappoints you, your first instinct is often to judge. You feel let down, disrespected, or even betrayed. The mind rushes to make sense of it by labeling the other person selfish,
careless, fake, inconsiderate. Judgment feels like protection. It gives you a sense of control when your trust is shaken. But what judgment really does is close the door to understanding. It builds a wall between you and others, between your pain and your peace. If you truly want to stay calm, no matter what, you must learn how to replace judgment with curiosity when people disappoint you. That simple shift can turn anger into insight, resentment into wisdom, and hurt into understanding. Disappointment is not just about what others do. It's about the gap between your expectations and their actions. You thought they would show up and they didn't. You believed they would keep their promise and they failed. You assumed they cared as much as you did, and they didn't. That gap creates emotional pain, and in that pain, the mind seeks someone to blame. Judgment becomes a reflex. But curiosity, real, patient curiosity, turns that same moment into growth. Instead of asking, "How could they do this to me?" you start asking, "What might be going on with them?" That question doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps you stay grounded instead of bitter. Curiosity is emotional intelligence in action. It doesn't mean you accept bad behavior. It means you understand that human beings are complicated. Everyone has reasons for what they do, even when those reasons don't justify the action. Maybe they acted out of fear. Maybe they were overwhelmed. Maybe they never learned how to communicate properly. Maybe they're going through something you can't see. When you choose curiosity, you open the door to understanding the layers beneath the surface. You start to see people not as villains in your story, but as humans struggling with their own battles. When judgment takes over, the mind shuts down. You stop listening. You stop trying to understand. You lock people into one version of themselves, the version that hurt you. But people are never just one thing. The same person who disappointed you may have also supported you in another season. The same person who spoke harshly might be carrying shame, stress, or fear they don't know how to express. Judgment freezes them in time. Curiosity gives them the chance to evolve, and it gives you the